Alrighty, and looks like we're all ready to go. So up right now should be Metroid, all bosses, a race between Cypherin, DeeEddy, and ProtoMagicalGirl. Take it away.
Yeah, welcome everybody. This is Metroid for the NES. Do we want to have the runners introduce themselves really quickly? Oh, none of you have your mics on at all? All right, so Cypherin, we've got Cypherin, we've got DeeEddy, and we've got ProtoMagicalGirl over here. And do you want to introduce our couch?
I am Skyvilles, she, her.
And I'm Violet Moon, Viver.
And I'm Author Blues, he, him. And I think that we're probably ready to get this kicked off, and then we'll explain a little bit about what's going on. You want me to count down? All right. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so one thing you'll notice is that we did start from a password, and that password is purely cosmetic. Proto has decided to run suitless, while our other two runners are running with their suits. That purely cosmetic, it's perfectly fine. The leaderboard even supports that, so it's not a big deal. So this category right here is all bosses. So before we head toward Mother Brain, we have to kill both Kraid and Ridley. And part of that is going to be trying to acquire a few items. We're going to need several E-tanks. We're going to need the Ice Beam. And we're also going to need to actually make our way to those bosses before we can do so. If you've ever seen the any % category for this game, any % is able to skip the bosses, with the exception of the fact that they do kill one of the bosses in order to get more missiles. They're actually not necessary because you can do a trick to skip directly into Torium. So one of the big things in this game is actually manipulating the enemies. While most of the properties of enemies are isolated to each of them, one of the things that does happen is that when an enemy despawns from the screen, so when it leaves the screen, whatever direction it was facing when it left the screen, the next enemy to enter that sprite slot actually has the same facing, starts moving in the same direction. And that can make a pretty significant difference at the higher level of play. So you're going to see, in some cases, areas being moved from more slowly or being moved from in different ways in order to manipulate enemies to move in a specific way. So this is our first missile pack we're picking up right here. A lot of the missiles that we will end up getting in this run are actually going to be directly off of finishing off the bosses. This also happens, by the way, to be an up A category. So for those of you who are not familiar with NES speedruns, a lot of NES speedruns have the ability, you can push up A, up and the A button on the second controller in order to instantly game over, save and game over. So this will allow them to head back to the elevator for the area that they're in, for instance, a lot faster. So that's going to permit faster travel.
All right, so order here is important as well. Ridley will be fought first, followed by Kraid.
Go ahead.
A little about the up A too. They will lose health upon doing that.
Yeah, when you respawn, you always spawn with 30 health. That's irrespective of how many E-tanks you have, how much health you actually can hold. You will always start with 30 health. So there's some side effects of that. While it's definitely faster when you respawn at lower health, and that's kind of an issue. A lot of the patterns that they're going to get off of these enemies are going to be a direct side effect of what they've done earlier in the run. So, for instance, you see some of these enemies moving in different ways in different rooms. The players do have some control over that. So,
close race so far here,
Yeah.
heading into the first wrap.
Yeah, we're going to see our very first screen wrap here. The thing that they're going to do is they're going to actually get themselves trapped in the door, which sort of acts as a wall, and it'll allow them to start moving through the wall. From there, they're going to repeatedly morph and unmorph. So morph into morph ball and then unmorph and stand back up. And each time that they do that, it's going to move them through the wall, and they can wrap into areas that they otherwise shouldn't have access to. So this first one right here, they're working their way toward the Ice Beam.
And Ice Beam. Again, really close race here. Heading into our next wrap. See how it goes.
Yeah, it looks like both of our runners on the left have elected to not worry too much about the enemy manipulation, just trying to make it through the actual screen wrap as quickly as possible. They have to go through this door and come back in order to be able to activate the elevator, so they're heading down into the next area.
So as stated before, enemy manipulation is everything. And right here, we're looking for one of the enemies to perform a low, medium jump. That means a good Ridley pattern if we see that.
Yeah, so we actually see pretty favorable patterns on both of our screens. It looks like we'll probably end up with what we're wanting here. So this screen wrap here isn't strictly necessary in the sense that you are supposed to be able to go down, but it does require bombs, and they don't have bombs at this point. So the screen wrap that they're doing is not necessarily a sequence break in as much as they're just missing the item that they need to be able to do that the correct way. You see here Proto actually reopened that door after she entered the room. That's supposed to help mitigate some of the lag in this room. And he's working his way through the lava. Getting stuck in the lava is actually especially risky because in order to jump out of it at full height, you have to land all the way at the bottom of the lava, which means getting stuck in it for longer and taking damage for a longer period of time.
So this room right here is a bit tricky in the sense that there's lots of small enemy pattern variations to react to.
Yeah, a lot of this is coming at you pretty fast, and the amount of damage that enemies in all of these areas do is actually pretty significant, especially for the amount of health that they have at this point.
I'm going to let them focus on the Ridley fight coming up, but there will be a lot of mashing going on. So anytime shoot is held, any button pressed or released causes a shot. For Ridley's, they're going to be holding left plus select, and that equals a lot of bullets.
Yeah, they're basically just going to be mashing every other button because it means that every time that they press and unpress the button, that's a separate bullet that comes out while they're holding the fire button. So that makes a pretty pronounced difference over just mashing the fire button. If you hold down the fire button and instead mash other buttons, it actually ends up being a lot more bullets. It's sort of a weird side effect of the way this game was programmed. It's not necessarily pressing the jump button that causes a bullet to come out, but it's actually changing the controller's state. If the fire button is pressed at that time, then a bullet comes out. And so mashing all the other buttons on the controller can make a pretty significant difference. Select just happens to be a pretty good choice, as well as left, because neither of them are really affecting much in that fight. Eddie just took a really quick death right here. So you can see here Proto firing so many bullets. And she's able to do that because she's holding the fire button while mashing other buttons on the controller. It's way more bullets than you'd be capable of firing by just mashing the fire button.
Well done, Proto.
So she really quickly pressed up A. That counts as the equivalent of a death, taking her straight back to the elevator and out of this area. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually where Proto's route is going to differ very slightly from the other two racers. We'll see what they end up doing, what they choose to do. But at this point, our racers have a choice that they can make. There's an E-Tank that's going to be coming up later in the run, and they can take the E-Tank now for a small time loss, but that's going to make it a little bit easier to actually perform the Kraid fight. So Proto is definitely heading over to the E-Tank. It's a little out of the way, but this is going to give her an opportunity to have enough health to not really have to struggle too much with the Kraid fight. The side effect of that is going to be that after she leaves the Kraid fight, she's actually going to be at lower health than she would otherwise be if she had picked up this E-Tank later. Eddie's now heading into the Ridley fight. Let's see how this goes. First starts off by freezing the bullets that are being fired. Yeah, that's rough, but that's a pretty tough fight naturally, and heading in there at low health is definitely risky, but I think we'll see him get it next time.
All those little adjustments that need to be made in Kraid's lair.
All right, Proto entering Kraid's lair. Now there's an E-Tank in here that she's going to need to get as well, but it looks like she's going to take it after she actually finishes the Kraid fight, which makes a lot of sense, because getting back out away from that E-Tank during the fight is really, really challenging.
I've seen people get that E-Tank both before and during the fight.
Yeah. Keep in mind that depending on the area in the game they're in, these enemies do a massive amount of damage. Right now they have the capacity to hold 130 health. These enemies can do 20, 24, pretty significant amounts of damage. Depending on where they are in the game, you're typically supposed to have a lot more health at this point. So you can see here now the side effect of Proto's variation in her choices. She got that E-Tank earlier, and had she picked it up now, that would have put her back at full health. But because of that, she's now having to head in with only 35 health out of a potential, 300? You can see here some small optimizations in this climbing. One of the nice things about the Ice Beam and really, at a high level of gameplay is being able to freeze these enemies and use them to jump up and avoid having to do the full platforming, being able to skip a few things here and there. Oh. Trying to give them an opportunity to focus. They're both so close.
This is an absolute brutal NES game to run.
Absolutely. So at this point, there's a small change that's happening on Proto's side. So in most areas of this game, the drops that enemies can provide is somewhat fixed in a specific way. But now that she's starting to encounter the Metroids have a slight difference to the way they work. Metroids can drop missiles, I think it's roughly 25% of the time, health 75% of the time, and it's frame-based, so if you kill all of them at the same time, they're all going to drop the same thing, and so farming them takes some specific technique.
As a reminder, too, there's a minimum of 73 missiles needed to take down Mother Brain's room. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So, our runners are going to have to farm almost certainly for missiles. In Proto's case, she's having to farm a little more for health as well because of taking that E-tank a little bit earlier.
Proto looking good missile-wise right now, but still needs quite a few amount of health before getting to the Mother Brain room.
Absolutely.
Isn't that always the way in games? It gives you what you don't need.
Yeah, so Proto's very close to heading into Mother Brain's room, and we'll give her an opportunity to focus. But I do want to just mention, first off, it takes a pretty significant amount of health just to be able to weather the storm, as well as a lot of missiles to be able to handle it. And one thing that I do want to be mindful of is that at the very end of this, there's a lot of flashing on the screen, so if you're prone to if you have epilepsy, you may want to be a little bit careful with that. Wonderful.
Well done, Proto. Coming up on time at the top of the elevator.
Got Eddie heading into the Kraid fight now. Great fight.
And time! Congratulations, Proto.
So health shouldn't be a huge concern of Eddie's at this point because he's about to pick up that E-tank that Proto was able to get earlier, and that's going to mean that he's going to have a lot of health heading into Torian.
We got time for a quick donation?
Absolutely.
Awesome. We have $10 from Oh My Mike, which says, "Let's go Proto! Proto MAG. Proto W definitely not Orb. Who needs heavy spacesuits when you've got new glasses?"
I believed in the E-Tank. There you go.
There we go. Fantastic. So you can see Eddie here making use of some of these enemies. He's freezing to be able to climb a little bit faster throughout here. Yeah, or getting blocked by them. I mean, it happens either way. Wonderful.
Nice Ridley
Great fight.
fight. Good job, Cypherin.
Now again, Eddie is going to be trying to probably end up having to farm quite a few of the Metroids, but for the most part, you know, his missiles aren't in a terrible situation right now. His health is pretty good. So Cypherin heading straight down to take on Kraid.
Yeah, those Rinkas are giving you a heck of a time there.
So since there's such a high incidence of getting health versus getting missiles, usually if you're going to be farming for health, you want to kill them all at the same time, since whatever you're going to get, it's probably something that you're interested in. If what you specifically want is missiles, then it's usually more helpful to kill them separately. So you can usually tell what they're looking for based on actually how they do the farming. I'm going to let Eddie focus here. This room is absolutely critical.
Again, epilepsy warning.
So one of the big struggles with the Kraid fight is actually the fact that based on the pattern that he gives you, it can be very tough to go down and actually get that E-Tank. So. Oh, that's incredibly brave. All right.
Really good job, Eddie. Finish it off.
We see on the other side Cypherin heading in for Kraid again.
Great job fighting back, Eddie.
And Kraid's done as well.
Let's hear it for all three runners one more time. What a difficult game. Great job, everybody.